Hello there. My name is Jonathan, also known as Die Womp Rat Die, and you found Binging the Force with the Rocky Mountain Fan Force. So this is a place where Star Wars friends get together, rewatch Star Wars shows, and we digress doing it. So you can find us on Facebook at Rocky Mountain Fan Force, and you find this show on a multitude of podcast platforms, and on YouTube at Binging the Force. And you can also find our new merchandise store, bingingtheforce.myspreadshop.com. Hey, Michael's rocking one of the shirts. Awesome. You can also buy a bucket hat the next time. Thank you, James. You can also buy a bucket hat the next time you're fishing for answers to a Clone Wars episode mystery. So I'm proud to be joined by Michael, our producer guy, Dale, who is still not Death Watch, and James. Welcome, everybody. So today we are watching The Clone Wars, Season 2, Episode 14, titled Duchess of Mandalore.
And you are Death Watch, it seems.
I'm Death Watch. I'm the person behind the curtain who's trying to manipulate galaxy events.
Are you John Bisla?
What's that?
Are you John Bisla?
Very nice. I'll change my subtitle later to John Bisla.
Pre-John Bisla.
He's post-Bisla.
Yes, I'm post-Bisla. Before we get started with the episode, I do have a question for our panel here. It's a short question, but it's a complicated one. And it relates to this episode. So in war, in a spreading conflict, Mandalore tries to stay neutral. But can you? Can you be neutral in a war? Because there's always forces pulling to one side or another. So what do you guys think? So either in your personal life, in our real world, can you be neutral in a war-like environment? You're always doomed for failure. Dale, you go first.
All right. Well, I think it's difficult to be neutral. Looking at real-world examples, like the conflict this past year, whenever you happen to be listening to this with Russia and Ukraine, like other countries are not trying to take a side, but we're all really taking a side. You know, there's no staying out of something like that. So I think forming an opinion is important as far as what side you may or may not align yourself somewhat with, and determining, is it a priority that I take a side? Because it might be a deal where you don't necessarily agree with an invading force or someone that seems to be overstepping their borders, but it may not be a priority for you and your people. So it might not matter that you're taking a side. Your side might be just the third side on its own.
That's a good point. Maybe there is some new third side that you may have or an opinion about in a conflict, even if it's not neutral, right? So, James, how about you? What do you think? Can you honestly, truly be neutral?
Yeah, this is a tough question. I think generally you do at a certain point have to take a side. I'm trying to think about sometimes when you're neutral, you're looking actually at after the best interest of like your society. In this particular episode, I think it's interesting that Satine is really trying to keep them neutral so they don't get manipulated, the Mandalorians, so they don't get manipulated by either side or drawn into something that they're not really committed to do as far as fighting for one side or the other. This is a tough question.
Yeah, and I think that's why this storytelling really rings true, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely. It makes you think about a lot of...
Yeah, but because of corruption in government, because of Palpatine, because of forces, behind the scenes, bigger than her, they're trying to kill their neutrality and force them into one side or the other, and thus bring down and destroy the peace and neutrality in their society. Of course, they're doing it for other reasons, right? Emperor Palpatine is, but like just that concept of whatever is happening around you, it could be so tough. Michael, what do you think?
I definitely don't want to get into the geopolitics of the real world on that, because I think there's a lot of stuff, and literally on a weekly basis kind of changing right now on that. I mean, historically, yes. I mean, it has been done and it is possible. On a real world, not geopolitical level, I mean, I know I kind of float around a lot of different fan groups and a lot of different kind of organizations and stuff like that. And those kind of, taking sides and rivalries kind of definitely happen. And I have, for decades, steadfastly tried to not get into any of them. I mean, it's more of a personal kind of choice than anything else. But it's just, I very methodically have tried to never be in the middle of that kind of stuff because it never pays off for me. I don't think you ever win being on one side or the other on that kind of thing. I think you more often are better off being Switzerland doing the banking for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, look at Trek fans and Star Wars fans, right? I mean, I think the battle between the two may have been overblown over the years, but it's one that maybe media or other journalists like to kind of latch on to, and which one is your favorite, right? Is it more Star Trek or Star Wars? Pick a side, right?
And for me, that's a particular one, is having, like I said, kind of moving around a lot of different fan groups. That's a particular thing that I have a very specific philosophy on, which is that we're already chosen to be in an interest and focus our lives on something that marginalizes us from society. Why in the world would you then try to build walls between you and other groups that are also choosing things that marginalize you from society? Why would you not want to further marginalize yourself from other groups that also have the same kind of passions and interests, just because you don't share the exact same interest or passion?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, we try to be united in our fandom, just in general, our pop culture fandom, sci-fi fandom, and and I think when it comes to Clone Wars in general, right? Like, this wasn't a show that like everybody latched onto and loved, right? So we've covered some of the Mandalorian episodes; those are more universally loved. They're not divisive, but it's just some people like them. Some people are just like, nah, it's not for me. So maybe sometimes neutrality is just saying, I understand other people feel that way. That's just not for me. Maybe that's okay.
Cool.
Well, let's see how you guys feel today. Let's check out Duchess of Mandalore. Let's roll tape and see what kind of comments we have about this third in these trilogy of episodes about Mandalore. All right, fortune cookie time. Is it a tasty one this time? What do we got here?
It's a good one.
In war, truth is the first casualty.
Yes.
Ooh, nice. All right, I'll read newsreel again. A diplomatic mission. As dissent threatens to tear apart the peaceful Mandalore system, Duchess Satine struggles to protect her people against the escalating violence. Betrayed by two of her trusted allies, Satine now travels to Coruscant. There, she hopes to convince the Senate that a destructive splinter group, Death Watch, does not represent the entire Mandalorian government. Or do they? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the battle she's fighting is, she literally almost got killed on the way there with them trying to take control and be representatives. But yeah, we established back again here that Death Watch is in communication with Count Dooku and the Separatists.
I mean, they're really financed by Dooku and really run by Dooku, right? I mean, or is he just kind of like just pushing the right buttons that he knows will escalate this conflict between the two groups?
Yeah.
Well, but Dooku's got the connections with the Separatists, so it seems like his communications department is working better than Satine's right now, because the galaxy as a whole still doesn't know what the heck is going on. So when this misinformation comes up here shortly, it's easy for people to be swayed because they don't know any better.
So as a communication professional, I'm not sure if I should be proud or offended by that. I'm not sure.
Here's a question, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I want to see if there's any kind of differing opinions. Dooku does not know that Sidious is Palpatine, right?
Well, he does. I mean, at this point,
I don't think so. I think
thought he always knew.
I think no one knows that Sidious is Palpatine. I think his whole plan depended on that. I think that no one knows that he's playing both sides. that he's in charge of both sides, basically.
I was always under the impression that Dooku knew that Palpatine was Sidious, and that he wanted to be part of his plans the whole time, and he thought that once the dust settled and Jedi were gone, that he would be Palpatine's number 2.
Yeah, I
don't know.
thought it was part of his monologue to Obi-Wan on Geonosis. He's like, "What if I told you that the Senate was being controlled by the Sith?" He's just bad at math. He can't see that adding Anakin into the equation makes it there's no room for Dooku.
Only 2 there can be.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, thanks. I'm glad that you had
I
that.
thought about that. I definitely thought about that.
That does clear that up, because it just seemed to me that the impression I get, and maybe just because through Tales of the Jedi and through the other stuff we've seen of Dooku, I've really kind of gotten behind Count Dooku and the fact that I honestly believe that he's an actual true believer in the Separatist cause, and that he believes in the Jedi needing to fall and the Senate needing to fall. And I thought that was because of more of a pure belief in Sidious, and not if him not knowing that it was Palpatine playing both sides. So, but glad to have that additional info there that I missed. So,
yeah, and I think that Dooku's always kind of his plan A is to align himself with the Emperor, but plan B is also to kind of line his pockets to exploit the people.
I think I think you can say that with every Sith, that's always, that's always an aspect of anyone who's tried to have Sith leadership, is that, and why there can only be 2, and there's always the understudy is always trying to take over from the master, is that's part of the Sith philosophy. I mean, I'm going to cross genres here because we just talked about crossing fandoms, but I mean, it's like on a Klingon ship where the first in command is always trying to kill the captain to take the captain seat. That's just a standard part of their culture, that the captain should always expect that to be a possibility to any given moment, that your first officer is going to kill you. And I think that's just part of the whole Sith culture there, is that the apprentice is always going to try to take over from the master, and from the master's standpoint, if they weren't trying to do that, they're not a very good apprentice.
So Jarek here, he's trying to get the Republic to come and intervene, kind of like usurp, have a coup, get rid of Satine here, right? I mean,
yeah.
Because obviously he wants the Death Watch to be in charge.
Yeah. And even though Satine got betrayed by one of her own people the last 2 episodes, she knows this is like a deep fake hologram, that something's off with this.
Right. They literally have shown a video of people doing things that they didn't really do, as a way of showing the rest of the Senate, who we've established are pretty darn gullible.
So the Emperor basically wants the Death Watch to kind of rise to power so he can quash them, and kind of goes into his plan of expanding the power of the Empire, setting up the Empire, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all positioning so that so that Mandalore takes a side and takes the side of the Separatists, even though he's on the other side publicly.
Yeah, as long as they take a side, then he's got himself positioned to be able to take them out.
Right, neutrality doesn't benefit his plan at all. So definitely, like, it's almost like he needs them to take one side or the other. If they side with the Republic, that serves his purpose. If they side with the Separatists, that serves his purpose. Neutrality is his enemy.
This story for this episode is kind of a symbol of the entire Clone Wars, that with Sidious playing both sides. The situation, is the exact same thing.
And really, honestly, if the Jedi stayed true to their nature, and I'm really hoping with some of the new stuff that's going to come in terms of the High Republic and going further back into the history of the Jedi and everything, that we see a Jedi Order that would have really more represented that a Jedi Order that had less hubris about their role in the universe, would have really should never have been on one side or the other. They really should have been, serving the cause of order, not order, but I guess justice, and that they're serving order instead of serving justice. If they were serving justice, they never would have been on one side or the other.
Yeah. I think this episode really focuses too on kind of the strain that occurs between Satine and Obi-Wan and their relationship, right? It's very much tested. They both are probably have very high ideals and opinions, and those kind of clash.
Yeah, my ideas of shipping Satine and Obi-Wan took a blow right now when he called her hysterical. She called him foolhardy.
Yeah, gaslighting there a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
And that jump right there is why this story was good for animation, because live action, watching them jump out of a crashing speeder might not have been as
Although
good.
it's not like we didn't see stuff like that in like episode 2 and things, that all of these kind of chase scenes over Coruscant, anytime you've got like people without even a shield over them in an open vehicle, riding around in Coruscant is kind of insane.
Yeah, it looks kind of dangerous, right?
It seems like, especially as fast as those vehicles are going over Coruscant, I mean, just a bug would go through your brain.
Yeah.
They need at least a windshield.
Yeah, at least a windshield, because they don't even seem to have that. So physics does not seem to really play into Coruscant that much.
Right. Stoplights. Lanes.
Yeah, I don't know. They've always shown that in futuristic things, even going back to the Jetsons, of all these like, in the air highways of ships, vehicles kind of going. And I'm like, I don't know. I think unless you actually have computers running those vehicles, if you have living beings running those vehicles, I don't want to be in one of those vehicles.
Right. That's why flying cars will never work.
Not until we get autonomous vehicles where it's not humans, or not living beings kind of controlling them.
Yeah.
So this episode made me think about Palpatine and how one guy can be this puppet master. It seems a bit far-fetched that he could manipulate all these people in all these situations. It's not like he has like a group. Well, he's manipulating other people to help him basically manipulate everybody else, but no one seems to ever see through it.
Think of it as like in World War I, right? So like you had countries who were kind of itching for a fight, who already had these divisions in Europe. And then the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand just exploded that kettle. Yeah, and all these dominoes started to fall. People started taking sides. They were ready for a conflict. So I'm for that real world parallel to this, I think there were already divisions in a lot of societies between planets and systems that were looking for a reason to fight.
I think it's reading the room on a galactic scale. Like I said, it's really just
There's a powder keg that Palpatine blew.
Yeah, that Palpatine just had this great overall, overhead worldview that allowed him to manipulate things just because he's reading the room on a galactic scale there, To me, the only unrealistic thing is the fact that anyone, anytime, ever having a holographic conversation with Darth Sidious wouldn't go, Chancellor? Chancellor, is that you under that hood that just barely covers your face?
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, nothing to see here. That's about the only way to see it. But a good question to ask.
Getting back to this story, yeah, they had this whole vote. She didn't even know about it, which is I find hard to believe. She went off for a quick meeting and then we voted. It's passed.
Yes, the vote moves at the speed of plot.
Yeah, and now she meets up with this guy that gives her a Game Boy Color, I think, some kind of Game Boy.
That's a deep reference there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And how many times now have we seen people on Coruscant standing on balconies with high-powered rifles and long-distance sights?
Don't they have technology to pick up those kind of things? Like security robots watching everything, or sensors of some kind.
Yeah, it's another callback to Attack of the Clones, where it's someone wants to kill a politician. In that case, it was Padme, and they just keep subcontracting it down the line.
Yeah,
this person, they'll take care of it, and then
it seems to be a recurring motif of Coruscant, an entire planet of tall buildings with balconies like that. Seems like there should be some actual thought process to be preventing that situation from happening. Like everyone on the planet is issued a headband that has a force shield over it or whatever that
where are the
you from
CCTV cameras everywhere. It's I don't know.
Some anti-sniper technology that's just handed to everyone as soon as they get off a ship entering Coruscant,
Right.
Yeah, shouldn't the police be looking for this dude? Come on now.
Beware.
He's created enough of ruckus. Somebody should have called the cops at this point. So. Here they come.
I like the little police droids with the red and blue lights, just like a squad car.
Yeah.
That's not suspicious at all.
Oh, that's her little
Yeah, I was about to say
Deactivator thing. Yeah.
Yeah, her weapon that she had last episode.
Her pacifist weapon, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
The demobilizer.
Her
Well,
neutral
killing
death
thing,
ray.
even a droid, right? At least she's consistent in her beliefs. Got to give her that. She's very. She sticks
It's
to
for
her.
defense only, not for offense.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's so sneaky here. She fooled clones, police, everyone.
Well, she's still a Mandalorian.
I keep really enjoying the design of those Mandalorian ships.
They're pretty cool.
So this is kind of a weird plan. They think that, if the Republic Army does go there, that Death Watch will suddenly be heroes. But haven't the Death Watch been having like public bombings and things?
Right.
Like, are they going to forget that? Like, I don't know. It seems like a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they probably have killed people and innocents, and as happens,
Well, I mean, they can be installed as like the puppet government, somebody else, running them from behind the scenes, or maybe they just start to do, public works of goodwill and try to earn the goodwill of the public.
Yeah, there are parallels we could make to certain countries right now that we won't.
Yep.
Where an
It's
invading terrorist force becomes the actual installed government. But yeah, there's no way you can see a hollow like that and not go, Chancellor, is that you?
I like the hammerhead people.
This hammerhead doesn't speak basic, and so he doesn't know what they're saying.
Apparently in the script he's saying, yeah, I saw her. She's right over there.
I like the purple captions, I guess, on this. When I happen to process this and get it set up with the captions and everything, having the purple descriptions of what's happening in separation from the actual white dialogue.
So this right here, that is Umate, like the mountain. So that's the only spot on Coruscant where you can see the
touch
planet.
the planet. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
It's
one huge city, right? The entire planet, which is crazy.
Right.
It's got like
the
a
only place you can
people or
naturally see
something.
a mountaintop.
Something like that, like 1 trillion people or something like that. It's insane.
Yeah, that number seems a little ridiculous to me, but whatever. It's a galaxy far, far away.
That rocket also makes an appearance in
No spoilers. No spoilers.
in another Star Wars series.
Yes,
it made its debut in Return of the Jedi, the special edition at the end.
Oh, really?
That's where
they're celebrating the. Yep. Oh, okay. I guess I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
You are the man.
Been around for 20 years now. Yeah.
You are our own personal Star Wars Wikipedia here.
All you need a hood is in Star Wars to hide
that seems to be the way to disguise your identity. No one can recognize you if you have a hood on.
They don't have scanning technology that can, remove clothes and look at your face. No face recognition back.
Palpatine's cloak is pretty similar color to that, isn't it?
Maybe they think that's the Emperor.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no!
I mean,
they
can't see her face through under the hood there. So I mean, obviously this Death Watch guy has better technology.
Yeah, special binoculars there.
He's better equipped than all the droids on Coruscant. You'd think there'd be like, if London can have a camera on every corner and there's nowhere you can go publicly, like once you leave your house in London, you're on camera somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many hammerheads.
There are a lot in this episode.
They're like, we can't just have humans here. We've got to have something. Oh, there were some Rodians.
It was a school trip. They're all on a school trip from their planet.
Right.
But Coruscant is more of a humanoid centered planet, correct?
Well, it should be a little bit
dominated,
right?
If it's a capital.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of more this. It's literally they call it the galactic core planet. So I mean, it's the center of the galaxy, which it really isn't, but it's really where everyone is. So I'd say it's probably I mean, I'd say overall in Star Wars, just from a practical standpoint, the majority of the beings are human, just percentage wise. But I mean, I think Coruscant should probably represent more of a mix than a lot of other places.
I was waiting for Obi-Wan to use the Force in this fight. And
why was that Mandalorian cleaning his clock? Come on, Obi-Wan.
That happens often. They get in like hand-to-hand combat with some of these guys when they can just use the Force. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it should go pretty.
You're not supposed to Force choke him. I get that, but you can do what he did. Just kind of throw him against the building and knock him.
Yeah,
it's a ragdoll.
Yeah, that's always that tough thing in shows. It's like if you have a character that's too powerful and it ends a fight, where's your conflict? You have to have conflict.
Right.
Well, speaking of conflict in this episode, is anybody else bored? Honestly, it's not doing
all about trade routes. No.
Yeah, it definitely leans into that whole geopolitical kind of aspect there. I mean, there's not a lot of. I mean, that's kind of why we have that other plot. I mean, this is really the A plot is like political intrigue in the Senate, which is always so fascinating to watch. So that's why you got the assassination plot, because you have to have some actual action happening in the B plot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys kind of remember the first time we saw the Senate in, I guess,
Phantom Menace?
Menace. That was kind of cool. We had always heard about the Senate, but we never saw physically how they even did it, right? And it's in this ginormous cathedral, essentially.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a box like you're in a music theater, or not a music theater, but like a theater for like plays and stuff like that.
Like an opera center. Yeah. And the fact that everyone's box, when you're actually speaking, moves into the center, so you speak, and you
and it does give you the scale of like how big the galaxy is, right? Because each one of these boxes is representing a system, right?
Yeah,
correct.
A planet or a series of planets, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess the question here is like, if the first video was proven to be fake, why would you trust the second version of the video being any less fake?
That's a good point. Like, this is the real. This
one
is the
video is fake. Why is a revised version of the video more the truth than the other version?
Because they got nothing else to go on.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like as a governing body, they're just the Senate is so easily swayed. Like, I can't believe this. We got to take action now.
Well, don't they have committees that people specialize in certain things? But I guess not.
You would think
they just vote on stuff and
they
don't
can
seem
vote
to. Well, maybe they're like our congressmen. They don't know what they're.
Look, this episode's boring up already. If we have like a subcommittee evaluating the authenticity of this hologram.
I can't wait for that episode, because that's really going to be so much more action packed as when we do an entire episode about a subcommittee of the Senate. That's really going to ramp up the action there.
Here's our one little clip of Anakin in this episode. I mean, Padme gets some good dialogue and a new hairdo. So I'm glad they used her character, because Anakin, doesn't even have a line in this episode.
Well, then they didn't have to pay that voice actor for that episode, but but
it continues to show that Padme
plays a guard instead in this episode.
Is still very much involved in the politics, right, for quite a long time.
Yeah, she's definitely one of the more prominent senators. I mean, she seems heavily involved. Well, of course, there's the fact that her and the chancellor come from the same planet. That he was the senator until she took over as the senator when he became chancellor.
Yeah.
So is there a chance here for Obi-Wan and Satine? Are they smoothing things over? Maybe we'll get together and bar later and see what happens.
I think his Jedi commitment still gets in the way there.
Yeah, I don't know. She kind of put him in the friend zone at one point. That was kind of mean. She kind of put him.
Obi-Wan got friend zoned.
Yeah.
And I think right now her bigger concern is kind of the Scooby-Doo mystery of who done it. Who's the man behind the mask.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, I think we've established that Obi-Wan did have casual relationships, because I think there was talk about that in some of the feature films, and so
he had friendships
2 and 3 and stuff like that. I think we did establish that he has a history, but I think it's that question of a casual relationship versus something that actually would represent an attachment.
Yeah, deep emotional kind of, yeah.
Something that would be that higher level of a relationship
Yeah.
that to him would cross the level into breaking his Jedi vows, and I don't think he can do that with Satine. I think that they've already had too much of a closeness, and him saying that I would have left the order, if you would have just said the word.
Yeah,
I don't see that that's an option for him now, because it's not going to be a casual thing for him.
Yeah, I think Obi-Wan's personality though has kind of given itself to being like that. I think he actually kind of skirts the line a little bit, right? You have certain Jedi that follow all the rules and follow by the letter. I think Obi-Wan's one of those kind of, maybe that's why he understands Anakin to a certain degree. Obviously, before they, finally go to blows on Mustafar, but
I just think that in this episode, it would have made it more dynamic and more interesting if there was a little bit more interplay between Obi-Wan and Satine as they're he's on the run and he's trying to rescue or help her out, and then here at the end, if they had to talk, there's some pretty big things that happen at the end of the previous episode between the two of them. He's like, I would have left the Jedi Order. I was considering it.
Yeah, they
didn't address that at all in here. And it would have been nice to have a little bit of that instead of so much.
Jonathan, you're all about the love story. You just want the love story. You don't care about the trade routes.
Give me something I can latch onto here, man.
Yeah, I think Obi-Wan's personality is unique because he wasn't trained by Mace or by Yoda, being so strict. His master was Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
So Qui-Gon is someone, that we know defied the council. So Obi-Wan is very much an independent thinker, but I think in this episode he was very much back to business. We'll talk about that other stuff later, but right now there's bigger fish to fry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a lot of remember sitcoms from the 80s. At the end, they would always reset back to square one, right? Yeah. Pretend like none of that happened before. No real progress in progressive storylines. So I feel like in some ways this episode at the end did that. They kind of reset where Satine and Obi-Wan were. They're going to go on their separate paths again.
That's true. Our little newsreel recap at the beginning had no reference to any of that dialogue between the two of them.
Sigh. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, I think that is an issue with the episode, is that there's always this reliance on that Senate scenes and Senate intrigue is interesting versus they really should have had that follow-up conversation about the stuff that came out in the moment of stress in the previous episode. We don't deal with that at all.
Right.
Yeah, raise your hand if you're interested in Senate intrigue.
No, definitely.
Sorry.
What season is that?
James on an island, man.
I love the love story that's in the relationship between them, so I like both.
Cool.
Good Star Wars has both. So
you know what? It's like we always say, there's different Star Wars for different people, and whatever is on the Star Wars menu, there's so much that's there, so you can find what it is that you like and enjoy that.
Yeah. Even within these episodes, you can pick kind of what is interest to you, you're right. And I guess you could go try to find novels or more comics or something that kind of expounds on it.
That is true.
And by not answering all those questions, it still leaves that character open. It's promising that we are going to see Satine later on down the road, that it's not just, remember when Obi-Wan had a potential girlfriend for 3 episodes and then we never heard from her again? It's good to know that there'll be more to the story later.
Dale, that's a perfect segue. Nice.
All right.
There is more Clone Wars Mandalorian coming. So I encourage you all to join us next week. We're going to be continuing to binge. We're going to do one more episode here of the Clone Wars. We're going to pick season 4, episode 14, called A Friend in Need, where we do meet our friend Bo-Katan. And we will wrap up our current coverage of Mandalorian Clone Wars episodes. So if you're interested in learning more about us, the Rocky Mountain Fan Force, you can learn more about us on our Facebook page. Just do a search for Rocky Mountain Fan Force. So we'll be having a meeting later in April, so you could get event information on that Facebook page. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here today to discuss the Duchess of Mandalore. And thank you for tuning in, everybody out there. And may the Force be with you.